Hey there, everybody. We're going to be getting underway here in just a second. Just as on past days, I want to get our live stream going here into the Facebook group. So hopefully I have all of that set up correctly so that it will momentarily go right on into Artwork Living. If you're with me live on Zoom, I want you to do two things. Number one, turn off all other streaming devices so you have the maximum available bandwidth. Number two is to make sure that you have the chat roll open. So if you're on Zoom, if you're joining me via Zoom, I want you to get the chat roll open, and it's going to be down at the bottom where the idea bubble is. Click that if you're in Zoom to open it. And at the very bottom of the chat roll is a button that says panelist by default. Go ahead and switch that from panelist to panelist and attendees. It's the best learning experience for everybody involved. It's more like what you see in Facebook. It means that you'll be able to see all the comments and the questions that come in. So, hey, Michelle McNinch, it's good to see you here today. So make sure you get that chat roll open. If you're joining me from over in Facebook, and I am going to, as we've been doing, get my phone open so that I can see those questions more easily, since Facebook doesn't like to do the scrolling that is necessary in order for me to really adequately see the questions. So hang tight for just a second and let me get that up. And it should, of course, it's going to hide it from me for a minute so I can find the correct link and get to actually Artwork Living. Nothing like going around your elbow to get to your toes. Here we go. Now I got it. Hey, Diana. Diana says I made it and I'm almost caught up. That's awesome. So I think we've got everything streaming correctly now. We're in the Facebook group and we're over here in Zoom, and I can see the questions in both places. Awesome sauce. So I have a whole bunch that I want to cover today because I want to talk in this bonus session about what you do next. Where do you go from here? We've spent the last 5 days. You may still be catching up, or on day 2, 3, or 4, that's okay. You've got till the end of the week to finish out the challenge. But we've been talking about attracting your ideal collector to your social media accounts, using social media to attract your ideal collector all week long. And we've talked about, in addition, how to figure out whether you're actually beginning to do that. We're going to look at analytics in just a minute for a second so that I can make sure everybody knows how to actually tell whether what we've been doing is doing you any good or not. Because if you don't, if you're not looking at the analytics, you're not necessarily going to know whether what you've been trying to do is effective. So we want to go by the numbers, not by our feelings or what we think might have been happening, because that can be really touchy-feely and kind of fuzzy and not particularly helpful. So we're going to look at that in just a second. Then the second thing that I want to do is I want to talk about a roadmap for going from just attracting your ideal collectors to turning them into actual real collectors. Because just having ideal collectors is not going to get you all the way down the road. So we've gotten part the way down the road. We've kind of gotten onto the road, but we've got a number of other steps that we need to take if we want to be successful and thrive as artists. But first up, let's look at the analytics on a post so we can tell whether a post has been effective or not. And we're going to look at it both in Facebook and in Instagram. Remember, there are a bunch of different ways to get to the analytics. The easiest way to get to the analytics is on the individual post in the app. For Instagram, it's in the app on your mobile device. On Facebook, you can do it either on mobile or on desktop. I'm going to go into my Creator Studio in just a second, and we're going to look at the analytics on a couple of my recent posts via that direction. So let me get that pulled up, and then I will share my screen. So I want to make sure I've got the correct post pulled up first. And then we will take a look at some numbers and see which one, what that means, and whether we're going in the right direction. So let's share the screen here. And we're going to look at a post that I made on both Facebook and Instagram the other day. This is the one of the big wide open marsh with the racing clouds overhead. So while I'm in Creator Studio, I can click on seeing the analytics, and I can look to see how effective that is. Now, I'm going to answer any questions y'all have after I finish talking, because I want to keep it really, really tight today so that we don't go down a rabbit hole. So if you've got a question, type it into the comments or the chat roll. Know that I'll come back to it, but I'm going to get through what we need to cover first so we can keep it really, really, really tight. So I can see on here that I had really strong reach on this post, and it had really good engagement, especially when I compare it to the other post that I made that day. I can tell whether people have clicked on it to read further down. I can see how many comments have been made on it and how many reactions. So one of the things about knowing your analytics is you want to compare what you're looking at to something else. So I'm looking at the post reach there, looking at the engagement, and I can compare that to a post. I'm going to go way back. Let me see if I can get it to go far enough back. Come on, thing. Oh, it's not going to go any further back than that. I'm going to go to this one. So I can see already that the first post I showed you had twice the reach and twice the engagement. Part of that is I included more hashtags in that last one. So I can tell that I'm going in the right direction towards attracting my ideal collectors. Analytics are super important. I want y'all to get used to doing that. You can find analytics in both Business Suite and in Creator Studio. They approach it slightly different in slightly different ways, but those are the tools that make it really maximize your experience of the analytics. Now, when I look in Instagram, I'm going to actually, and I can compare those exact two same posts, I can see some really interesting things. I can see how many are coming in from hashtags. So I can see really clearly which hashtags are working. And I know some of y'all asked me the other day about whether the algorithm could read the hashtags that are in the comments. I want you to know that, notice that there are only 2 hashtags in the actual caption here. All the rest of them were in the comments. Yet 2/3, more than 2/3 of the accounts that I reached came from the hashtags. So I know that those hashtags are working very, very effectively. The accounts that I reached from home were people that were already following me. So hashtags do indeed still work. And I can tell that these are going in the right direction, especially if I compare it. Let's see if I can get down to that exact same post. I believe that was in March. Yep, here we go. and I reached far fewer accounts. My guess is I did not use hashtags effectively in that post. Do you see 10% weren't following me? Whereas in the other one, 70% were brand new eyeballs. This one, only 10% are brand new eyeballs. So by looking at the numbers, I can tell which ones are working, which ones are not. It's not necessarily the caption. It's not necessarily the image. A lot of times it's the hashtags. So you've got to be really, really intentional about how you use those, and you've got to pay attention to the analytics. It is as important to notice how many people are saving posts on Instagram as it is how many people are engaging with it in the sense of making comments, in the sense of clicking like. Shares indicate that somebody really loves your work. So if they're being shared, if they're being saved, either on Instagram or Facebook, that becomes a really nice metric to follow. And you can see that on the individual posts within the app. So that is how you really need to start paying attention to the analytics. And I think some of y'all, when you're looking at what you accomplished during those 5 days, need to go back and do that to realize where you came from to where you are now. You're not going to see an enormous leap unless you've just, by some chance, absolutely nailed your hashtags first time out. So where do you go from here? You keep amplifying what's already working. That's the key to accomplishing anything. The second thing you want to do is remember, don't be a perfectionist. Take baby steps, take action. My favorite, the 3 F's: fail, forward, fast, which means you got to do something. Don't get frustrated and say, it's just not working for me. Keep looking at what is working and rinse and repeat and do more of the same. But if you don't fail forward fast, you're not ever going to take action, because the truth is failing is not unsuccessful. Failing means you tried something and you can tweak it to make it work better the next time. So that's why I keep talking about failing forward fast. Take rapid action. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid for something not to work as well the very first time. Some people made big, huge leaps during the 5 days. People grew their engagement and their following by over 30%. Some people gained 1 or 2 followers. Each one of those is equally important. It's important if you just got your account set up. Don't be afraid to take small, slower steps. You've got to go at the pace that works for you. Ultimately, though, the next step in becoming a thriving, successful artist with a sustainable art practice online is to begin to implement those 5 pillars that I talked about earlier. And I want to go over those in a little bit more detail here. So let's look over here at some slides that I got for y'all. So we're going to talk about the Thriving Artist Roadmap. This is the pathway or the roadmap that I teach for getting from where you are right now to where you want to be. And remember, how you define that success is going to vary a little bit for people, but the overall roadmap works no matter how you're defining success at the end. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the very last slide here. So there are 5 steps, 5 pillars, I mentioned those earlier, to thriving as an artist who is sharing their work and trying to increase their income online. Those 5 steps include, let's see if I can go, there it goes. Those 5 steps, those 5 pillars include at the center, that thriving artist mindset, that growth creative mindset. It's the understanding that, yes, you're an artist, Yes, you can do this. The starving artist is a myth, and it doesn't have to stay starving. So we're going to go through some of the steps for each of these pillars as well. But at the center is that thriving artist mindset. It feeds you in all of the other pillars on that outer circle. It's super important for everything that you're going to do. Having that positive outlook, that glass half full, is crucial for anything that you want to accomplish, whether it's in art, whether it's in exercise, whether it's in relationships or anything else. It is that important for whatever you want to accomplish in life. So I want to challenge everybody. If you're a glass half empty person, you got to shift that because it's holding you back. So that center part is the mindset. The first pillar up there is creating compelling artwork. And that is making artwork that acts like a magnet and draws the viewer in and creates an emotional connection with them. The third pillar is building your online platform. And that is important whether you want to get into a gallery or you want to make online art sales, or whether you want to simply impact people around the world. The easiest and fastest way to reach those people is by using an online platform. And we're going to go through the different parts of that online platform in just a few minutes. The fourth pillar is to grow your engaged audience. We worked on that for the last 5 days. You've started, you're understanding that it needs to be an engaged audience of ideal collectors, not just your family and friends. Keep in mind, it's super important that you engage with your ideal collectors because that draws in more of the same. That last pillar is to launch your work. It's to create an offer and use a sales mechanism to have an exchange between your ideal collector and you for money, where they get an artwork and you are paid for your work. That is launching your work into the world. It involves creating an offer that converts and having a sales mechanism that allows that exchange to happen. So let's go through these 5 pillars in a little bit more detail. Come on, thing. There it goes. I don't have this lined up exactly right so that it's going to fill the screen. Adjust that. My perfectionism is kicking in. Y'all don't be me. Don't be a perfectionist. It's going to drive me nuts when it's off like that. And I'm going to have to let it go. Okay. The Thriving Artist Roadmap laid out step by step. You're going to cultivate that thriving mindset, then create the compelling artwork. And we're going to go through each of those little bullet points. Don't try to read those little bullet points now. We're going to take them one at a time. Create the compelling artwork whatever stage you're at right now. Remember, I've said before, this is not about waiting around until your art is perfect, because it will never be perfect. It's about having the most compelling artwork you can at the point you're at right now. Then the third stage is to build your online platform and to work through the steps that it takes to get it to work together. It's not one piece working alone. It's all 3 pieces working together. The 3 components in that online platform are your website, your email service provider, and your social media hub. The fourth is that growing that engaged audience, identifying your ideal perfect collector, beginning to share your meaningful content on social media, etc. And then launching your artwork with that offer that converts using a sales mechanism that allows you to have that exchange occur. The very last step, and it's the one I'm going to focus the most attention on this afternoon, is thrive and amplify your impact, grow your impact. And it's about how to take it from being a one-off launch into making it something that creates a sustainable, thriving income. So it's about going that last step. So the different steps along the way on those pillars. Number one, remember that thriving artist mindset. You got to know your why. You have to know on a deep level why it is you make art and why it is that you want to sell it, share it, and what you want to accomplish with it. It's not enough to just want to paint boats, for example. Why do you want to paint boats? What is it about boats that you love? You need to set goals that align with your why. And you're going to hear me say the word align a lot. It is absolutely crucial to thrive. If you're out of alignment on any of the steps along the way, it's going to feel awkward. It won't feel good. And it will feel like you are promoting something you don't believe in. So there's got to be an alignment between your why, the why being why you paint, why you want to make this income, and the goals that you set. Crucial for that alignment to be there. Then you need to stretch your comfort zone, because most of us are operating below our potential. Most of us are operating in our zone of safety. And that's okay. It's what human beings are kind of designed to do, because if we're operating in our zone of safety, it means literally we're going to be safe. And as soon as we step even a little bit out of that zone of safety, all the alarm bells are going to start ringing as you grow. What you have to do is begin to get comfortable with stretching. And the most easy way to get comfortable with stretching is to take small steps. Take small baby steps towards your desired outcome. Then you have to define your vision of success. Is it making enough money to cover your supplies and attending 2 workshops a year? Is it making enough money to be able to pay for family vacations for yourself and your family? Is it making enough income to be able to replace your faculty teaching position so you can leave the college that you've been teaching at? That was mine. It is different for each person, but you have to define what it is. You have to figure out what it is you really want. And a lot of us are really reluctant to dive into what we truly, really want and desire. What is it you want? Because it challenges that sense of safety and it challenges our comfort. But until you do that, there's always going to be a little voice in the back of your head going, well, what if I had? So take the risk, define what your vision of success is. So let's go through those 4 again. Know your why, set goals that align with your why, stretch your comfort zone, get out of it a little bit, and define your vision of success. Make your vision of success what you really want, not what other people want for you, and not what is going to keep you safely in that comfort zone. Those are the steps within that first pillar that you have to take in order to thrive. Pillar number 2 is about creating compelling artwork. The only way to consistently create compelling artwork is to actually, let me get back here, establish a regular studio practice. It doesn't mean that you have to always paint from 9 to 5. It doesn't even have to mean that you paint from 9 to 12. You have to decide when your most productive time is and put the time in on a regular basis in whatever way you decide to define what regular is. If you're still working around a 9 to 5 job, it means you're going to have to figure out how you're going to carve out that time that it's going to take for the studio practice and the promotion practice in order to thrive and succeed as you desire. But establishing that regular studio habit is crucial. It's the way your art will grow the quickest, and it's the quickest way to make those compelling paintings. The second thing that you need to do, and there's a reason why it's here under making compelling artwork, you need to define your niche. We've talked a little bit about what the difference is between painting lots of different things and having lots of different subjects and areas that you like to delve into. And that's fine, but you've got to know what those are and keep them to a minimum. Don't go into 12 different things. You need to be able to define what those different things are, and they're called a niche. So there's a big difference between abstract intuitive painting and observational landscape painting. It doesn't mean you can't do both, but you need to be able to talk and articulate about both. And that helps to narrow your focus in the actual painting. Knowing what you want to work on in your paintings makes it easier to create a consistent body of work. So it's important to be able to define your niche and to be able to describe and talk about what you're doing to other people. That leads you to being able to create a consistent body of artwork. Yes, you can work on multiple niches at the same time if you've got more time to do it. Yes, you can work on multiple niches, but you need to have, in order to promote, a consistent body of work. And remember, I've talked about the desire to only promote one niche at a time. Doesn't mean you can't promote them all in the end, but get one up and running first, then go back and get the other up and running. Create a consistent body of artwork so that people recognize you in your paintings. That comes from that consistent art practice as well. It needs to be artwork that you're passionate about, and that people who love that niche will find irresistible. So here's the niche right here in the center. Then there is artwork. There's artwork that's created in that niche, and there are people who love that kind of artwork, and there are artists who love to make it. Do you see the alignment there? That goes back to the idea of the 4 or 5 content categories or themes, because people who love that niche also love these 4 to 5 things. Artists who make work in that niche love those 4 to 5 things. Particularly you as an artist are going to love 4 to 5 particular things that are going to make you different from the artists next to you. That's how you stand out, is by having those things that differentiate you, that make you unique, that make what you offer to your niche unusual and personal. It's one of the things that creates that emotional connection. So let's recap pillar number 2. Establish a regular studio practice, define your niche, and then create a consistent body of artwork that you're passionate about and that your niche is going to find irresistible. Pillar number 3 is building your online platform. And pillar number 3 is where so many people stop and then wonder why things aren't working. Because they think if they build it, people will come. And that's just not what happens. What we've been working on all this week shows that. You've got to drive the engaged collectors, ideal collectors, to the platform in order for it to work. But you got to build it. So the building of it includes those 3 components: the email service provider, the website, and the social media hub. So let's talk about email service provider. It means that you're going to use a bulk email service provider, because you cannot send bulk emails using your personal Gmail account or your personal Yahoo account legally. You're violating both federal law if you're in the US, Canadian law, EU law, UK law, Irish law if you do that. All the countries that you're going to be working within have guidelines on sending bulk email. There has to be a direct opt-in. People have to give informed consent in order for you to send bulk emails. Email service providers give you the tools to do that and do it in a way that complies with the law. Super, super, super important. Then you're going to send regular emails at least weekly that focus on your customer, not on you. And what I mean by that is no email newsletters. And yes, some of the systems that are out there still call that weekly email a newsletter, but I don't want you to think about it in the way that people traditionally have done newsletters, which is this long recitation of their latest accomplishments. People truly, and I love y'all all dearly, people don't care that you just won an award. It is not going to attract your ideal collector, nor will it increase your sales. Awards are fantastic. Awards make us feel better about ourselves. They do not increase your sales. And it is going to decrease your engagement if you harp on that in your newsletters and emails. Don't do that. You need to focus instead on the story, like we've been talking about for the last 5 days. So focus on your customer and sharing your story with your customer, not on a recitation of your accomplishments and your activities. We're not going to talk about that you took, you won a first place in Oil Painters of America or in the Pastel Society. That's great, but it's not what is going to attract your ideal collectors or your ideal clients. Don't go down that route. Build a website that showcases your artwork. Super important. And that website should not be on something like Fine Art America, where you're not going to get the names of the people who buy your work. The website should be on a regular website hosting platform, whether that is Faso, whether that is WordPress or Squarespace or art storefronts or Shopify. Really depends on your level of expertise already in online marketing and how much you want to spend on it. So I'm not going to go into all 4 or 5 of those right now, but all of those are viable options. They have pros and cons that are really different. Most people do best by starting out with Faso. If you are further down the road along the e-commerce route of selling your work online, it might mean that you're ready for something like Squarespace, art storefronts, or Shopify. But most of y'all need to look at Faso in all truth at the very beginning. That website is like your online gallery. It is the place where people go to look at your work. It needs to have things like a shopping cart on there so that when you offer your work for sale, people can purchase it directly on that website. There are all kinds of different tools that will do that. We're not going to dive into each one of those today, but that way of being able to take payment will ensure that you're able to create the sale and have the income. The website is the tool to do that. Simply having it is not enough. People have the idea that if they build a website, people will magically appear from across the internet. That's not how it works. The way that it works is you have to drive traffic. You have to pull people from social media to your website. We're going to talk about that more when we get to the audience. So simply building it is not enough. The third part of the platform is your social media hub. It's developing 1 or 2 social media platforms that are going to form that hub. Start with the one that you feel most comfortable using, that your collectors are on, your ideal collectors are already on. So that's why we've talked about focusing on either Instagram or Facebook to start with, and not trying to do both at the same time. Don't try to start both at the same time. Get one going, then get the other going once you have 500 followers on it. Don't try to make your life more complicated than it has to be, but get that social media hub going. And just like the other 2 parts of it, all by itself, it's not going to create sustainable income, because a social media hub you don't own. You ideally want people to move from social media to your email list. Your website is the vehicle to do that. And that's going to bring us in just a second to building and nurturing that engaged audience. So those three parts again are: choose your email service provider, build a website, and develop your social media hub. All three are crucial components of the painter's path. All three are crucial components to thriving. You need all three, not just one or the other, all three. And there are ways to implement all three that at the very beginning don't cost money. So there are tools out there that will let you get started pretty much for free, but you got to start. You got to get them established. Pillar number 4, it's what we've been focusing on for the last 5 days, is growing that engaged audience of ideal perfect collectors. Because growing an engaged audience of family and friends is not going to sell paintings. Growing an engaged audience of family and friends is just going to get you more family and friends. Yes, a handful of them will buy, and that's fantastic, but they're not going to give you that sustainable, thriving business that allows you to achieve your vision of success. They've got to be the ideal collectors. And we've talked about how to identify those all week long. Then you need to share meaningful content with them on social media that's in alignment with those 4 to 5 content categories or themes. That's crucial to attracting more of those ideal collectors. Remember, we're trying to feed the algorithm so you'll get more of the ideal collectors. We just went through the analytics at the very beginning of this presentation, talking about how you can look at the analytics to see whether it's working or not. Third thing there, in engaging, you got to respond to comments on your website and on social media. So when you're posting your artwork on your website, if people are making comments, you want to go back in and make a meaningful response and get that dialogue and conversation going. Remember, you want to make a response that elicits a response so that you're not just always, you can sometimes, but not always, just saying thank you, because that stops the conversation. Try to think of what you're going to say that is going to enable a conversation to continue. So you need to respond and engage. You need to send regular, at least weekly emails that, again, focus on your customer, not you. The monthly newsletter doesn't do you any good. That old idea of sending a monthly email newsletter, but it worked 10 years ago. It maybe worked a little bit 8 years ago. And the reason it worked back then was our email inboxes were not as full. We didn't get nearly as much of the volume of email that we get now. When you get as much email as we get now, a monthly email is going to get lost. People will forget who you are between monthly emails. They will forget they signed up for your email list. You need to nurture them more than that in order for it to work, in order to build a sustainable, thriving online art business. Weekly is the way to go. You don't want to do daily. That's probably too much. You could do daily 10 years ago because, again, the volume wasn't as high. You can't do that now. The sweet spot is 1 or 2 times a week. So you need to think about getting regular emails started. So those 4 parts of growing that engaged audience are to identify your ideal collector, share meaningful content on social media, respond to the comments on your website and on social media, and to send regular weekly emails. That can be a little overwhelming. That's a lot of stuff. And what makes it easier is having a system that helps you plan out and develop the content that your ideal collector wants to see. And inside of the painter's path, that's one of the things we teach is how to create that content. And in particular, we teach how to create the content for the next 90 days. A lot of people create more than that, but coming up with the topics for 90 days worth of daily social media posts. When you do that, you feel rich because you've got the plan in place. And once you've got the topics, you're not struggling at the last minute going, I need to make a post. Oh God, I need to go make a post. Or I need to write an email. Oh, what do I write? You've got your list of topics and you can get it done quickly. Batching and having a plan and a system is what gives you the time to still be able to paint. A couple of y'all have asked me, how in the world do you have time to paint if you're doing all of this? The way that you have time to paint is that you batch tasks that are similar and you plan ahead and you use systems. When you do that, you leave yourself big enough open spaces in order to go make those compelling paintings and other types of artwork. The last pillar is to launch your work, because just to make it and to post it on social media and post it on your website is not asking for the sale. The reason that most people are not able to sell their work is they never ask for the sale. They never actually tell people that it's available. And people don't assume that when you post a painting that it's for sale. That's why so many people go, are you selling this stuff? So you need to create an offer that's based on what your clients, your ideal collectors want, and then use a sales mechanism that makes it easy for them to make that purchase. So create an offer. And sometimes the easiest way to make sure it's something they want is to just ask. That's a highly overlooked technique. Just ask. Invite and ask for the sale using the power of story. We've done that in our posts this past week. If you use the sales script, you've used the power of story to ask for the sale. You've made it available. Think about it as an invitation to dance. You're inviting people to become part of your community of collectors, of real collectors, not just ideal collectors. So the two components of launching your work are creating an offer that your client wants and inviting and asking for the sale using the power of story. And y'all did that. If you took the leap and you used the sales script, but it doesn't end there. What we did this past week in the 5-day challenge was a quick social media launch. It's one of the techniques that I teach inside of the Painter's Path. But in order to have a thriving, sustainable business, you need to amplify that more. You need to develop what we call the three-legged stool. It's what I love to teach as a way to have a sustainable business. And it's what I taught when I taught entrepreneurship, arts entrepreneurship at the college, and it's what I still teach. You need to have 3 different income streams in order to be able to survive the ups and downs of the markets. That means online sales of paintings are one. It could be that online sales of prints are another. It could be that online sales of merchandise is a third. That's one way to create a 3-legged stool. The beauty of that model is that you're creating price points for a variety of different customers. And you can develop customers at those lower end price points and nurture them so they come back and buy over and over again and eventually upgrade to the original artwork. Your 3-legged stool might be selling your paintings on your online website. Your 3-legged stool might also include working with interior designers who find you on your website, because you market to interior designers just like you do to your ideal collectors. Your third leg might be gallery sales. You find your galleries by marketing to galleries, just like you do ideal collectors. So that three-legged stool might be online art sales, interior designers, and galleries. The beauty of a three-legged stool is that if one goes quiet, the other two can sustain you, that you're not dependent on one single source of income. That's what really got people in the last year. It's what got me back in 2008, 2010. It's why I went online, was that I was single source dependent. In 2008, I was only selling through galleries. I was selling a little bit directly out of my studio to people locally, but mainly gallery sales. And when the recession hit, I didn't have any way to reach people in other areas of the country or around the world. And so when my gallery sales dried up, my art sales dried up. They didn't return for a good 2 years, 2.5 years. I don't want that to happen to other people. It is important to develop a sustainable three-legged stool. If you don't remember anything else, please, please, please remember that. And know that there are a lot of other income streams that you can choose from. Me, myself, and I does online art sales. I sell through galleries, and I license my work to publishing companies. So I very rarely sell reproductions myself, but I license my work to a big company that does. So I have a three-legged stool that brings in constant revenue. That's super important. I have a fourth stool in that I teach, and that might be something that you want to include as well later down the road. But you need to think about those income streams. Super, super important. Then you need to optimize for the desired income, which goes back to that very first step under mindset. You got to know what you want. Literally, if you want to make a six-figure income, own it, and then figure out what it is you're going to have to do to get there, because you're going to need to have layers in there, not just the sales of the original artwork. It means having that diversified income stream so that you're going to get it. Are you going to get it in the first month? Maybe even the first year? Probably not. It's probably going to take a little longer than that to develop it, because businesses take time to grow, but it is entirely possible to do. If I did it, you can do it. And I know other people who've done it as well. So you want to optimize for the desired income. Know what you're shooting for, and then plan backwards in order to get there. You need to serve your clients, because the people who will be your most important clients, your most important collectors, are the ones that buy. They'll buy again and again and again. They'll buy over and over again. It is way easier to sell to people who've already bought than it is to develop a new customer. You need to remember to serve your clients. And as you get more bandwidth, improve that customer experience so that they become raving fans. Cultivate client loyalty. How can you make them want to come back over and over and over again? There are all kinds of ways to do that. There are Visa cards out there that give you points so that you can get flight miles with airlines. There are grocery stores that give you rewards for shopping with them. Think about how you're going to be able to cultivate customer client loyalty, and then grow your impact, because ultimately what it's all about is having your artwork change the experience of your viewer down the road. And when you grow your online art business, you grow your potential to have an impact on the world around you. As artists, we have a responsibility to share our talent with the world. You have a responsibility to share your work, whether you want to produce income from it or not, but you got to share it. So figure out how it is that you're going to get your work out there in the world in order to share. You can absolutely take the path, the framework that I just described, and I'm going to give y'all the PDF of this. So it's going to be in the group for you to download. and I'll send it to those of you who are registered for the challenge. You can absolutely do this and go through step by step by step and walking the path by yourself. But I'm here to tell you, you'll go further faster together than by yourself. And if you want to go further faster together, then I would love to have you join us in the Painter's Path. It's open through Thursday at midnight Eastern time. And everyone who joins today by midnight gets a 30-minute one-on-one strategy call with me. And I flippin' love doing those things because they are fun to both figure out the directions and the possibilities for people that are out there and to see the light bulb moments happen, because that's exactly what does happen. And I know some of y'all who are on live right now have had one-on-ones with me before. I don't do those by people just wandering up to my website and signing up for a one-on-one. The only times I really do those are for bonuses for students signing up for courses. So that's pretty much the only one way to get one with me is through a fast action bonus. So I would love to have y'all take me up on that. In the meantime, let's go through these last stages one more time. I want you to develop a three-legged stool. The way that you get to thrive is through optimizing for the desired income, really being conscious about how the actual steps that you're going to take to reach that income. You can't be like one of my former students at the college, bless her heart, saying, I'm going to make $1 million and then not giving me any steps on how she was going to get there. You got to have the steps to get you there. Serve your clients so that you're cultivating client loyalty so that you can grow your impact. All of those steps are equally important. And that's what's going to give you the roadmap to thriving and succeeding as an artist. So I want to dive in and take any questions that folks have. I'm going to go over here to the Facebook group first and go back up to the very first questions. And so, hey, Diana and Maria is on here. Awesome. Hey, Ginger and John Egan. So Diana says, I've learned so much and created a business page today on Facebook. High five. That is the first step. And you need to reward yourself and celebrate each and every step you take along that roadmap or that path. They're all important. They help you track your progress. I am glad that you've learned a lot there, Chris Shavley. That's awesome sauce. So Chris says, once I open my Facebook biz page, I'll automatically be privy to Creators Studio. Once you have a business page, you should have access to either Creators Studio or the Business Suite. They both do pretty much the same thing. So one or the other, you should have access to one or the other, and you should see that in your tools on your Facebook business page. Facebook is in transition between those two right now, so you might have one or the other. So Maria, Insights has the analytics. Analytics is a term you use for all the different kinds of insights. So Insights is inside of, the easiest place to find them is inside of either Creator Studio or Business Suite. Hey, Kathy Nettles, it's good to see you. And Beverly Richmond is on. Chris, it is not too late. Chris says, it's too late, been a perfectionist almost my entire life. I'm living proof that it's not too late, because I am a recovering perfectionist. I have this thing about wanting it to be perfect before I ship it. And that gets in the way. It has taken me a really, really long time to get past that. And I think what happens for a lot of us is that we have perfectionism in some areas of our life more than others. And it creeps out in weird ways. But yeah, I definitely have perfectionism for a long time. I still have it. I will sit on an email for a week because I want to get just the right word. And the truth is, I could have sent it the very first day and it would have been fine. Don't be that person. Fail forward fast. So I kind of have it on a sticky note right down here at the base of my computer screen so that I'll remember, fail forward fast. So I hear you, but it is possible to get past that. Don't let perfectionism stop you. You want to move past that. Hey, Mary Jane, it's good to see you here. Mary Jane is one of the people in Painter's Path who's taken lots of rapid action and gotten her work out there. She has a show right now. Proud of her. Louise says coral reef preservation. That's a great topic category, Louise. You're going to find tons of people who are passionate about that. So I think that's a fantastic category to work with, if that's one of your 4 to 5 categories. Patricia says, I never get comments on my website. How can I add that feature to my website on FASO? So if you're not getting comments, it's probably not because the feature's not on there. It's because you're not using story and conversational language in a way that invites people to converse. So think about what we've talked about all week about how to make conversational language super important in what we're doing. That's how you get comments on your website. That's where you're going to get comments on a blog post. So all of the systems that we've talked about for websites have the ability to include comments. And if you're not getting them, it's because you're not starting a conversation. So think about how you can start a conversation. Diana says, invite and ask for the sale only occasionally or with every new painting. That depends on how big your audience is. It depends on whether you're going to simply keep doing small, quick social media launches, or whether you want to learn how to launch a larger body of work, like launch a collection. The main launch that I teach inside of Painter's Path is the collection launch. It's about using your website and your email system in addition to your social media in order to launch a bigger body of work. Because the truth is, you're not going to make enough money unless you develop a social media following of very, very high income people. You're not going to make enough money from simple social media launches in order to make a sustainable living. If you do a social media launch a week and you sell a small painting each time, so say my 5x7s are the 4x6s, the really little ones, the smallest and the cheapest paintings are $235 each. If I sell one of those a week, I am making less than $12,000 a year. That's not going to sustain me in today's economy. So you have to use other launching systems in addition to that in order to create that sustainable income. That's where those bigger collection launches come in. So absolutely, you can do a small social media quick launch every week, but know logistically how much that's going to bring in depending on the price of the painting that you're selling. You may have heard Steed ask me yesterday, and Steed is in the Painter's Path, whether she should go for a high-end painting or the low-end painting. And I talked about the length of time on the runway. In other words, the number of posts before asking for the sale. For more higher priced stuff, you've got to have a longer runway. So there are things you finesse for selling higher priced items and selling bigger collections. But to start with, you could definitely do weekly quick social media sales. Diana says, I feel I need to build my skill and skill set more to have confidence to sell and produce more inventory. What would you recommend? Your skill set in what, Diana? Which skills do you feel you need to build? Because what will build confidence in selling is actually selling. Your confidence in selling doesn't come from learning how to scumble more effectively. Your confidence in selling comes from selling successfully. So what you need to work on is selling more successfully in order to feel more confident about sales. It's not about painting better paintings. That's doing that postponing thing I talked about earlier of waiting until your paintings are perfect. No, 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 no. Sell in order to get confident in selling. John says, I've learned a lot. Your enthusiasm is contagious. My motivation for examining the analytics has increased a tremendous amount over the course of the challenge. High five, my friend. Another analytics numbers geek. Remember, I told you I'm not a math geek, but I love me some numbers because it tells me what I'm doing right and it tells me what I'm doing wrong without my emotions getting all tied up in it. So I'd love to hear that, John. And let me grab some of the questions from over here in Zoom. So Phil says, I'm using Facebook Creator Studio or Business. I'm using Business Suite versus Creator Studio. Why Creator? It is not where Facebook is going that I can see. Both of them are owned by Facebook, and we don't know exactly what direction they're going to go, Phil. I don't know whether they're going to eliminate Creator Studio or make Business Suite part of Creator Studio. I suspect that's where they're going, but they don't give us the insight on all the details. And even the people I know who actually are talking to Facebook about where they're going don't know exactly what they're doing with this. So some people have access to only Business Suite. Some people have access only to Creator Studio. Some people have both. Up until a week ago, I did not have access to Business Suite on my desktop. I had it on my phone on an app, but not on the desktop. So it's that limbo area where they're developing new stuff, and it's not one versus the other. It's what you got, what Facebook is giving you as a tool to work with. They're going to move. My belief is that they're going to move Business Suite into Creator Studio as one of the tools that you have access to. And they'll probably switch the name around. They've done that before, but that's where they're going. So if you've already got Business Suite and it's working, yeehaw, you're in fine shape. Just use that. Don't worry about whether it's one or the other. Just know that if you've got it, you're fine. You've got the tool that you need right there. And Gisela says something I totally agree with. She says, you create in your mind, your action will follow. Exactly. You've got to have an idea of where you want to go in order to get there. If you can't visualize where you want to go, you will wander all around the corner and all over the place. If you want to use another writing metaphor, my students know I talk about writing metaphors all the time because I'm a horse nut. So in writing, we talk about writing into the corners, using the whole arena. A lot of writers, when they're first doing that, will go in their minds, they'll say, don't fall in, don't fall in, go into the corner, go into the corner, don't go into the inside. Our minds don't process don't. So our mind hears go into the inside, and you end up going into the inner arena instead of going all the way into the corners because of the way the human mind processes information. So what you visualize is what's going to happen. What you visualize, what you see as your goal is where you'll end up. So focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Your action will follow. Kara says, who should you follow on your Instagram business page other than role models and influencers? How many role models? I really want everybody to start with 5 of each And you can follow anybody you want to. I like to keep who I'm following down to a minimum and to people who feed my excitement about what I'm doing. So you can absolutely follow other artists. You can follow friends. You can follow art friends that are not your role models. It's just you want to engage more with your ideal collectors, with your role models, and with your influencers. So for example, I follow my daughter on my Instagram account. Do I occasionally interact with her via Instagram? Yes, especially if she posts an adorable photograph of my granddaughter running through a mud puddle. I'm going to interact with that. It doesn't mean you can't interact with that, but it means that that's liable not to bring me my ideal collectors. So I'm not going to spend all day over there talking and commenting on every single post she makes. So you can follow whoever you want to. I would not follow 15,000 accounts because that's going to overwhelm your feed. I would curate the feed so it has to do with art and things that you care about. If you want to interact more with other artists, have a separate personal account for that. So that if you want to interact with somebody, an artist who's not your ideal collector and not your niche, get a personal account so that you can have that side of the community develop, because you don't want to dilute your ideal collectors. Kara also says, I sold my painting from day 5. Awesome. I forgot to ask about that. So if you sold your painting from the day 5 sales script, I want you to drop that into the comments in the Facebook group or into the chat roll here in the feed, because we need to celebrate. If you didn't sell it, it's yet. It just means you need to rinse, repeat, and tweak. Kara, that is fantastic, fantastic news. I love that. So she says, it was from someone I know, but he did connect with the subject and the story in the caption. That's awesome sauce. Story is a really powerful motivator for sales. People buy based on emotion, and then they justify it based on logic and rational thought. So story has that power to zip in under the defenses and make that emotional connection. So woohoo! I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that. Carla says, fantastic, Kara, well done. I think we're all saying that. Claire says, it seems necessary to produce a painting a week to do this successfully. That's a big demand to meet. No, you don't have to produce a painting a week. You can produce a painting a month. Let me repeat that. You do not need to produce a painting a day, a painting a week. You could produce a painting a month. What you have to do is post regularly on social media, send a weekly email. Does that weekly email have to have the brand new painting each week? It doesn't. It can have progress shots. Let's do a theoretical one here. You're going to do a monthly painting. It's a bigger painting. And so you're going to send progress shots in your weekly email to your VIP email list. You're going to post progress shots at least once a week on social media. Those other posts could have photographs of the places that you paint or your subjects that are inspiring your painting. Those other posts could show images or talk about any one of those 4 or 5 content categories and themes that you find important, that your ideal collector finds important as well. But it does not have to be a brand new painting each time. That's not necessary. It could be a painting a month and you could do just fine. Does not have to be a daily painting or a weekly painting. The other thing you need to remember is you can also go back through older paintings. You can promote older paintings as well. Cheryl says, if you sent something weekly, I don't know if they would sign up. Too many I know don't want to hear from you, but quarterly, or that's what I hear. No. If they're your ideal collector, they need to hear from you more often than that, because they're going to forget who you are quarterly. Your family and friends may only want to hear from you quarterly, but quarterly is not nearly enough to build a sustainable business. Quarterly means that once every 3 months, you're contacting these people that you're trying to build a relationship with. I have never seen a relationship develop with contacts made every 3 months. So yes, your friends may only want to hear that often, but ideal collectors definitely want to hear more often than that. So quarterly will not create a sustainable business. It definitely will not. So I would say the total opposite. It's at this point in time, with the volume of email that people have, they need to hear from you weekly. Now, what they do not want is a really long email. They want short and sweet, because people now have the attention span of a gnat. Our attention span is shorter than a goldfish, literally. So people are not going to read an email that goes on forever down here. They just are not going to do it. But they will read an email that is short and sweet. And one of the reasons that is that most people, let me stop sharing for a second. Most people are reading their email on this. And if you have a super long email, then what you're going to have to do, if you've received a super long email, then what you're going to have to do is scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and people quit doing it. They get sidetracked and they lose interest. But I can guarantee you, if you email, I literally can guarantee you, if you only email quarterly, you are not going to make good sales, not online. If you email quarterly, you will lose a chunk of your email list every time, because they won't remember who you are and they'll mark you as spam. And that begins to hurt your reach. It begins to hurt your open rate. So please don't do that. I'm not sure who's telling you that, but no, they don't. No, they're not correct. Cheryl says, right now I'm talking with a foreign music producer for an image of my work on a CD album as digital. That's awesome. Long ago, they did one for a musician who's now deceased using my work. That's a great way to get some advertising. At that time, I did not get anything. I didn't get paid for it. You see this look? What do you mean you didn't get paid for it? If somebody is licensing your work, using your work, then you need to get paid for it in some way, shape, or form. Please don't do that. This time I want to be paid. Yes. And I'm getting anxious over what to charge. I noticed the other day that this musician started following me. Well, that means you need to just do some Dr. Google research on how much people pay to license artwork for an album cover. And one way to research licensing is to look at Creative Market, look at Shutterstock, and some of the image licensing companies out there, and look at how much they charge. There's a big range, but you'll have a better understanding of what to do when you look at what other people are already doing. But yes, definitely get paid for that. Pauline says, how much time does the composition, color, and light section take in the painter's path? I'm interested in that aspect, as well as setting up a business. What I strongly recommend for people to do on that one, Pauline, is if you're setting up your business, if you're going to approach it that way, that you dive in, follow the modules in the painter's path. And when we get to module 4 and you're working on creating that compelling artwork, that you skim through CCL, the composition, color, and light course, to see where there are holes that you need to fill. And certainly that is something that we could talk about in the coaching calls so that you're optimizing your time there. The thing to remember is that you can always go back through just the composition, color, and light course on its own. And it's an 8-module course. And so people tend to go through that over the course of 8 weeks. But one of the things that Painter's Path students can do, because it's not dripped to Painter's Path students, is that you can dive in and out of it and you can pick which modules fit what you need at that particular time. So I would not go all the way through CCL during that module 4 and implementation 2-week period. I would dip in and dip out so that you're really tweaking your artwork, and know that you can go back through that and rinse and repeat as often as you want, so that you're developing both of them simultaneously. And ET says, this has been great. I've learned so much. Awesome. Getting a late start on the challenge, but we'll do my first post today on Instagram. Very good. Let us know how it goes. Bev says, the webinar has been powerful and informative. I'm glad. She says, I need a larger body of work to share with others. No, you don't. That's that perfectionism coming in again. You do not. The larger body of work will happen as soon as you get that consistent painting practice going. But you absolutely can launch with just a handful of paintings. Pick ones that you've got that are already done, that are sitting in your studio, that need to go to good homes, and go through the process and launch those. So one of the things I advise Painter's Path students to do as we're going through those modules the very first time, don't try to create an entirely new body of work for their first bigger launch. Launch work that already exists. Send it out to its desired home, and then work on your new body of work after that. But you can have a small collection that has no more than like 3 to 6 paintings in it. And it does not have to be a big old huge collection. So no, ma'am, I do not want you to wait until you have a bigger body of work. You need to launch. The way that you get more confident at selling is by selling. It is not by painting more. It's not by knowing how to scumble or getting a palette knife under control. It's by selling. So get out there and sell. Yeah, sell to become confident. Wilma says, going back to the website and adding captions that tell stories about each painting. Very good. And Cheryl says, I have both Business Suite and Creator Studio, but I haven't checked to see if I have access on all devices. Business Suite is a separate app, and Creator Studio is a separate app on phones. Again, they make it a little complicated there. So you need to check on whether you've got it on both of them on your computer and both of them on your mobile device. Yep, I knew what you meant, Cheryl. And Carla says, I'm really struggling to connect Instagram and Creator Studio. Has anybody else had a problem connecting them and viewing Insta Analytics? So one of the things that you probably need to do is to connect your Instagram account to your Facebook account to pull it into Creator Studio. I suspect that's what it is. Kara says, so following a lot of successful painters doesn't affect the algorithm. Who you follow is not going to adversely affect the algorithm. It's who you interact with. It's who you actually interact with. And interacting with successful painters puts you in the same niche in Facebook and Instagram's mind, the algorithm's mind, as those successful painters. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. So no, it will not hurt you. Carla says, I've got 7 followers organically. I can't believe it. Woohoo, just from posting 4 days. That's it. and you will get more because it's an exponential growth. Everybody has to start at 0. I started at 0 too, and it took a while. The first 100 are excruciating at times. The first 500, a little bit less so. And the first 1,000 feels like you have just crossed a marathon finish line. Celebrate each and every one of those because they're all important. I think actually the first 100 really made me more excited than anything else. So keep going. You'll get more. You'll get more of the same. It's that consistency that really builds it up. So go do that sales email. That sales post. It's important. And Cheryl says, I think it would be good to tag your email list depending on who the people are. Yeah, it could be. If you can do it in a way that feels normal and natural, I think tagging people when you've done something that would be of particular interest to them. So if I know that one of my collectors really loves, say, Tybee or loves Edisto, if I tag them in the social media post and make it personable and conversational, then it's not going to feel too salesy. I would not tag them in a sales post, but I would definitely tag them in a regular post. Carla says, I got Insta connected in Creator Studio. Good deal. So let me catch up with the latest questions here on Facebook. And for some reason, it just disappeared, the questions. Let's see. There we go. Patricia says, do you direct them to your website with the weekly email? Bing, absolutely, spot on. Absolutely. Then that is exactly what I do. And Maria says she sold a painting from her 5-day challenge too. High five, Maria. Was it the Central Park one? Was it one of your Central Park paintings that you've been working on? I'm really curious there. Oops, I went down too far. Joan says, I have saleable paintings with lots of experience and believe in myself, but haven't been able to get on business Facebook. That's just a tech hurdle. And so what you need to believe in yourself on is that you can manage the tech. So go to the link in the very first email that I sent out for the challenge and go down to the link on for Facebook on starting a business page and walk through that and make your goal for this week simply be getting a Facebook business page started. That's enough for the week. Make it something that's doable, that's not going to be overwhelming. Louise says, I've linked my Instagram page to my Facebook business page. Woohoo! I get lots of comments and likes on Instagram, but Facebook remains fairly quiet. Is that a method I should change? You want to make sure you're responding to comments on Facebook too, but understand that the ecosystems are really different. And I have posts that do super well on Instagram that don't necessarily do as well on Facebook. Posts that do super well on Facebook and don't do necessarily as well on Instagram. It's one of the advantages of being on both platforms is that you're optimizing for both. So in order to grow Facebook, now that you've got Instagram running, you're going to need to make sure that you get in there and comment and have those conversations start within the first 10 minutes after you post on Facebook. Patricia says, are the previous videos for this series available to listen to? I'd like to watch them if possible. Yes, if you register for the challenge, then you get access to the replay page and all of the videos are on there and the links to the Q&As that we've had here in the Facebook group. So if you click on the cover photo at the very top of the page in the group, it has the link to sign up for the challenge in there. And I'll post it again here in the comment thread. Helen says, I just got home, so I'll start at the beginning later today. I have my 5 new paintings in an album, and number 1 is posted. Way to go. So Louise says, what if you've only ever sold 1 painting? That means that you've done more than most artists. You've sold a painting. Now you're going to sell your next painting. How do you get people's emails? Well, that's that more complicated system. You have to have a system. And that's where having regular social media posts and having a regular blog post on your website and your social media posts sending people to your website so that they join your email list so that you can send them a weekly email. But as soon as you get your very first email subscriber, you should start those weekly emails. And as I said, yes, I do direct people to the website in the weekly email. Louise says, are you going to be offering the Painter's Path again in the fall? It won't be offered till later in the fall, late in the fall. And Maria says, can I post on Instagram and Facebook a picture of the paintings I've sold? Yeah, you absolutely can. And what I would say is something about being really excited about these paintings going to their new homes, because that validates that you're an artist that sells, and it increases the desirability of your paintings. So absolutely, you can say that. And yes, share that into the Facebook group here. It is okay during the challenge to celebrate. In fact, I want you to celebrate selling a painting during the challenge. That's important. I want everybody else to know that it's possible. So absolutely share it, Maria. That's a good thing to do. Not a bad thing at all. And I think we have another few questions over here in the Zoom. Carla says, have you any thoughts as to what currency to sell work in? Ooh, that's a good question. She says, I'm in the UK, and I know you said not to add the dollar sign before, if I understood that right. So how do people know what currency you're selling in? I do add the dollar sign on my website. So absolutely. And in any message that I send through Messenger. So pound sign, euro sign, whatever it is that you're selling them in, you definitely need that when you're posting the pricing on your website. People have different ideas about which currency is going to be better. It depends on where your market is. If at the beginning you're primarily marketing to other people in the UK or in Europe, then it's going to make more sense to sell in pounds. If you are predominantly marketing into the Americas, then dollars makes more sense. But just be explicit on your website what the currency is. I know people living in the UK with businesses who sell in dollars. I know a lot of people who do that just because most of their market is in the States. So the determining factor there is, where is most of your market? Where are most of your marketing efforts going to be? If you're trying to grow a US market, then use the dollar. That's the easiest way to approach that. Phil says, Creator Studio appears to have deeper analytics that I did not know than Business Suite. It does, compared to the older version of Business Suite, but they are rolling out a brand new Business Suite, and it has a deeper level of analytics. It's got the deep level of analytics that's in Creator Studio. So if you don't have deep analytics in there this week, Phil, keep watching, because it's liable to show up next week. Like I said, last week, I did not have the full suite in Business Suite, because they don't roll it all out at once. They roll it out in bits and pieces. And then at the mid of last week, was when I got the piece of it that I was looking for that had not been in there before. So hang tight on it and they'll get it to you. So Cheryl says, so having a lot of artist followers, if you don't interact much with them, will not affect you. Good to know, as I have a lot of artists following and followed. Yeah, if you're not engaging just with your artist followers, you're going to be fine. It's that you want to engage more with the people who are potential ideal collectors. Don't use it as your personal platform to have your art buddies. Make that a personal profile. So that's where it can become problematic, is that it's not going to feed the algorithm if you're just doing art buddies on your business profile. Virginia says, should you put your Facebook and Instagram links in your email? There are mixed feelings about that, and I myself have mixed feelings about that. I do not think it should be in your email, and here's why. The main goal of your email is to send people to your website. And if you've got links to your Instagram account and your Facebook account in your email, you're distracting people. So you've already got them on your email list. And what you're trying to do then is to build that rapport and relationship with them and get them to your website so that they get used to going there and they buy when you're ready to make an offer. So I would leave the Facebook and Instagram links out of your email so that you don't give them too many things to click on, because a distracted mind doesn't make any choice or decision. Gisela is asking, what is the monetization tool for? Oh, Facebook is trying to roll out tools so that creators, and by creators, they mean people who develop content, have more ways of making money like people do on YouTube. And some of those monetization tools are around things like stars, where, somebody can buy stars when you're doing a video and they can send you stars, which are they've purchased, so you get money in your account. I don't think it's worth doing. I definitely don't think it's worth using Facebook to run a subscription model. And that's one of their other monetization tools. So those are tools that once you have enough followers that you have access to in order to either run ads, let them run ads, not your ads, but other people's ads in your videos, and then you get paid a percentage of that, or other ways to monetize what you've produced, the content you've produced. It's not something I'd worry about at this stage. You've got to have a whole bunch of followers before those monetization tools really kick in. But that's what they are. In a lot of ways, I think they're a distraction. Just like Facebook and Instagram both have both have shops, and Instagram in particular is pushing Instagram shops really heavily. I don't want to run my customers' payments through Facebook, which is why I'm not setting that up that way. There are all kinds of other ways to sell via those platforms, but that's, again, a distraction until you've gotten the volume up on your ideal collectors. But that's what that means. And let me double check here and make sure I've caught all the questions. I think I've gotten them all. Awesome questions that y'all have had today. So I am going to be sending out the roadmap to everybody who's on the email list. That'll go out later this afternoon. And remember that I'm going to do a Q&A in here again. We're going to be talking about the roadmap this afternoon, 4:30. Be here, be square. And it'll be directly into the Facebook group, just like I've done the other 5 days. If you are in the Facebook group, I'm going to be uploading the roadmap there so that y'all can download it if you want to, so that you can have a copy of the slides that I shared with y'all today. And remember, if you want to take that path by yourself, you absolutely can. But if you're interested in being part of a group that goes further, faster together, I would invite you to take a look at the painter's path. The link is in the roadmap. Happy painting, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye-bye for now.